Hey everybody, this is E Scrubby. Welcome to the Captain Falcon figure assembly tutorial. Other than the kit itself, there are some other supplies that you'll need. In order to put the toy together, you do need that CT Toys Hush Batman. You'll want a mug full of hot water, a X-Acto knife, a hairdryer, and a few other things that I'll go over later in the video. So the first thing we're going to do to get started is take apart our Hush Batman figure. Okay, so we've got our Hush Batman figure out of the box. First thing we want to do is remove this whole cape piece. You can literally just kind of rip it right off. It's not important, so don't be afraid to ruin this because you don't really need it for anything. It'll come right off, and his neck came out too. So at this point, we're pretty much just going to take apart as much of this figure as we can before we need to start using the hot water. So I'm popping his arms out, I'm gonna pop his legs out. All this should be pretty easy. You don't need hot water for this part. But once we get to like about this point, this belt piece you can also remove. I'm probably gonna just rip it right off like this. I was gonna use that to cut it, but I guess I don't need to. You just break that. The next thing I'm gonna do is crack this torso open. So with like an X-Acto knife, you'll wanna kind of go into the seam and wedge it apart as much as you can. You don't actually need the chest, you need the skeleton piece inside of it. Just try to be careful, you don't want to cut yourself on accident. All right, there we go. So we don't want any of the chest, we just want the unit piece that's right in here. There we go. So this is trash. This is what we want to keep. We're also going to want to remove this crotch joint from this rubber pelvis piece. This one's a lot easier to do than the chest. Cut the rubber. Once you're able to just kind of do that, you'll pull it out and you got the joint. Okay, so now I've got myself a nice cup of hot water, and what we're going to do is drop the arms and legs inside the water to heat up so that we can remove the joints from each respective piece. All right, let's go ahead and try separating some of these joints. Hopefully at this point the plastic is warm enough. We should just be able to kind of force it, but if you're having a hard time, you can grab some pliers and make it a lot easier to just kind of pull it out like that. I already got one of the arms and one of the legs set up. As you can see, I'm only keeping the thigh, the knee, and the ankle joint. And for the arm, I'm keeping the shoulder, the bicep, the elbow joint, and the wrist joint. But really quickly, I'm just going to show you how I take it apart. Foot pops off pretty easily by itself. Ankle joint, you kind of want to use the pliers. It makes it a lot easier. And then for the calf, you can just twist it. Should be easy to pull out on its own, just like that. That's how you take the leg apart. And now let's take the other arm apart. Same kind of situation, use the pliers, get the wrist joint out. And then you want to just grab the forearm. Let's see, I don't want to take the bicep out, but... Oh, wow, how about that? I broke it. Okay, so I broke 3 more elbows. Word of advice, make sure your water is super hot so that the plastic is really soft and you don't have to force it and accidentally break it, because clearly these elbow joints are a lot flimsier than I remember, because I did not have this problem making the first Captain Falcon. But microwave your water for like at least 2 minutes to make it really hot so that that plastic gets super soft and you won't have to risk breaking them like an idiot like I did. Okay, moment of truth. Let's see if I can actually take it apart properly this time. The water was a lot harder, so should be a lot softer. Please don't break. Perfect. Now it's not broken. So at this point, if you've done everything right, you should have the 2 separated legs, the 2 separated arms, the central skeleton chest unit thing, the 2 wrist joints, the 2 ankle joints, and the crotch joint. Now we're going to move on to what to do with the abs, the neck, and the head. So for this part, once again, you're going to want to drop all of these parts into your super hot water and make sure that it's been in the microwave for 2 minutes. It's got to be super warm so that that plastic gets really soft. So the first thing that we can do is remove the neck joint, which is pretty simple. If the plastic is warm, it should just pop right out, no problem. So you don't need to keep the actual neck, you just need this little joint. Next, we're gonna remove the head joint, but they have a separate socket that's glued into the head. And we're gonna wanna remove that. So what you'll do after the plastic's warm enough, you're gonna take an X-Acto knife and just kind of cut along the back of the head. Once it's cut, you should have some space to kind of just open it up and pull this joint out. All right, as you can see, I got the joint out, and we're gonna keep that and toss the head. The last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get the joints out of the midsection. So once again, I got my water microwave so that it's super hot, just to get this plastic really soft, because this part, you're gonna want it to be really soft since this plastic's super thick. But similar to the head, we're gonna cut the midsection with our X-Acto knife. And now that the plastic's nice and warm, it's really soft, and it's much easier to cut. Make sure it's all the way through. To make it even easier on ourselves, we're gonna cut a chunk out so that we don't have to wedge the pliers in there. Now, we can just kind of pull this piece out, and now we've got our two joints. And we want to keep both of those. If you've done everything correctly, this is what you should be left with. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 wrist joints, 2 ankle joints. Got the pelvis joint, lower midsection socket, upper midsection socket, head socket, neck joint, and then we've got the chest frame with the 2 butterfly joints. And now we can start assembling Captain Falcon. For the sake of the video, I'm gonna put them together unpainted, unprimed, but I recommend before assembling Captain Falcon, he's fully sanded and primed and painted. First, we're going to put together the arms and the legs. So normally what I would do in this situation, after the figure's fully painted, I would use a heat gun or a hair dryer to warm up the whole arm so that it's a little more pliable. Make sure it's like really thoroughly warm so that you don't have a lot of trouble forcing the arm into place. It's gonna require a little bit of oomph to get it in there, but if it's warm enough, it should slide right in. So since I have my super hot water right here, I'm just gonna put the blank 3D print in the hot water to get it soft. Remember, again, I'm only using the hot water because my figure isn't sanded, primed, or painted. If you are going to be assembling your figure, I recommend waiting until the end of it being painted so that you don't have to use hot water. You just heat it up with a hair dryer or a heat gun, and then it'll go into place. See how it requires a little bit of force to get in? But anyway, so that's how you get the forearm into the bicep. Now let's do the same thing with his legs. Pay attention to the angle. Since this one's kind of leaning to the left, that means it's for his left leg. It's also going to require a little bit of force. Just try to be careful, but you also need a little bit of strength to really get it in there. All right, there we go. Okay, now that we've got our arms and our legs put on, we can start putting the joints in place. Very simple, just to put them in there like that. They should be nice and snug. I guess while we're at it, we can throw the fists and the feet on. So there we got the fists plugged into the arms. Now let's do the feet. Again, pay attention to the angle of the feet. This one's kind of angling to the left, so this is for his left leg. So you've got that ankle joint and you've got that ankle rocker. And now his arms and legs are fully assembled. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our torso piece, we're gonna take the 2 halves apart, and we're going to line up our chest unit in here. And at this point, what you wanna do, when you are finished painting, you'll wanna glue the 2 halves together. You'll wanna make sure that you're using a strong glue like this Gorilla Glue brush on. You're pretty much just gonna wanna brush the glue onto the edges, especially on these little pegs that slot into the other half of the torso. Once you do that, put the 2 halves together and just hold it for a while. If any excess glue starts coming out, you can just wipe it away with your finger. It'll dry up on your finger, but it's not really a big deal. Then just kind of hold it in place so that the glue dries and try to get it so that these seams don't come open as much. While that dries, we're going to glue the midsection sockets into place. I actually think the large one is pretty snug on its own, so you don't need to glue it if you don't want to. You just kind of push it in. Yeah, that's gonna hold. I think this top one might need to be glued though. Oh, no, that one's also good. I guess you don't really need to glue them, but if you want that extra security, go ahead and feel free to. And now, once you do that, you can kind of pop the midsection into place with the torso. Now we're gonna glue the crotch joint into the crotch piece. Inside, there's that little slot that's made for this specific part of the crotch. Put some glue on the bottom and on the back, and then we're just gonna slide this guy into place and let that dry. Just another reminder, all this stuff is being done hypothetically after you're finished painting this figure. You'll only want to really assemble it once you're done painting. Once the glue is dry on this crotch joint, you'll want to carefully pop your legs into place like so. And there's two. What you'll want to do next is take the rubber belt piece and kind of slide it down around the pelvis piece right there. Now we can put our torso in place. Now we can pop our arms back into place. Next thing we're gonna do is pop the head joint into the head. Looks like this one actually needs to be glued, so let's glue it in. We're gonna put a nice big dab of glue on top, right there. And then we're just gonna drop it straight into his head like that. Let's get the scarf glued in place. The scarf's a little bit trickier to put in place because you're kind of just gluing the end of it into this little cut slot there. So what I'm gonna do is put glue on the end of the rubber scarf piece here. And for this piece, you're gonna wanna try to hold it in place for as long as you can to let it dry. So it actually should kind of just go in right away like that. So once again, like the other parts, the neck requires it to be warmed up before putting onto the body. So I'm using my warm water, but assuming that you have fully painted the figure already, you need to use either a hair dryer or a heat gun. So once the neck is nice and warm, you pop it onto the joint inside the body, like so. Grab the neck joint, put that into place. Should just kind of be snug enough. And now you can just pop the head on like so. Unfortunately, it looks like his neck is a little bit loose, so if that's the case on yours, you can throw a little bit of super glue in there and swirl it around to tighten it up. Otherwise, maybe I'll have to remodel the neck before shipping out all the kits. So your Captain Falcon should pretty much be at this point. For the gun holster, you pretty much just peg the gun onto this little rubber peg that's sticking out. It doesn't hold it in place perfectly, but it's done like that for a reason, so that if you do move him around, you know, the gun can kind of move with it, and it's easy to put on and off. It holds itself in place good enough that it shouldn't fall out. You're able to rotate it, kind of move it out of the way of the leg when you want to pose him around. The last thing we're going to do is assemble his shoulder guard thing. To do that, we're going to use a small piece of elastic. Now, I don't know if I'm going to include this in the kits that you buy. As of recording this, I haven't decided that yet, but if I do, then you don't have to worry about buying it. But if I don't include it, then it's very easy to find at like a regular craft store in like the knitting section. They sell it in spools like this for like $1.50 or something like that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of our super glue and we're going to dab a little drop of it on the inside, right about here. We're going to put our elastic strap right on it, and we're going to let that dry. Now, the goal with this is that we want this strap to be as tight as possible. The trick to doing that is to cut it a little bit shorter so that you're able to still stretch it and glue it in place. Let's see if that's good. Yeah, that should be perfect. Put a little dab of glue on the other side. And using your thumb or whatever finger you think will fit, we're going to try to make it as tight as possible. You should have something similar to this. Now, very simply, we're going to put the shoulder thing on his arm. It should just kind of slide right on because that elastic strap should flex out of the way. Once you get it over his shoulder, try to tuck the strap as much as you can into his armpit so that it's as hidden as possible. And you should just kind of be able to move it in place wherever you want it, and you won't be able to see the elastic band. And now our Captain Falcon is fully assembled. I would just like to remind everyone again that, you know, for the sake of just showing how to put this thing together, I didn't have this thing sanded, primed, or painted. I recommend having him fully painted and ready to assemble before putting him together. And when you do put them together, don't use hot water because it'll risk ruining your paint job. Use a heat gun or a hair dryer and make sure it's thoroughly heated, otherwise you risk breaking or damaging your figure. And one other thing that I probably won't be able to show in a video anytime soon is how to put the decal on his back. I'll link a video to how to put water slide decals on miniatures somewhere where you can find it. It is pretty difficult, so for that reason, I'm including several decals with your kit in case you do mess one up. It took me like 5 tries to do it the first time, so I'm giving you 5 just in case you mess up. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Have fun putting your Captain Falcon action figure together. Enjoy!
Show me your moves!